If you looked at the viral images of those 7 mysterious suitcases sitting on the tarmac at LAX and assumed that was the absolute climax of this saga, you have likely missed the bigger picture. And if you believed the dramatic narrative ended when that private jet made an emergency diversion to a high-security military base in Sicily, you are mistaken again. In reality, those explosive events were merely the prologue, a chaotic setup for a much more intense and calculated chapter that is only now beginning to unfold. We are moving beyond the spectacle and entering the most critical phase of this entire investigation, the revelation of cold, hard, and irrefutable evidence. And the man who played the decisive role in this turnaround was the Sussexes' old rival, Piers Morgan, a controversial figure whose image is associated with constant warnings to the public. He has been criticized as bitter, even scheming, but today what he is bringing is completely different. Immediately after news broke about Meghan Markle's arrest in Italy with undeclared $12 million in cash, Piers Morgan wasted no time in coming forward. This appearance was a marked departure from his usual style. He wasn't there merely to offer personal anecdotes or subjective commentary. Instead, he arrived armed with a substantial, meticulously organized dossier that seemed to physically validate the fragmented truths that had been slowly percolating across social media platforms. With a gravity that silenced the room, Piers Morgan made a declaration that resonated with finality. "I've seen her bank records. She's ruined." The tension within the studio became so palpable that the air felt heavy, and not a single colleague dared to interject. At that moment, the noise of celebrity gossip faded away, replaced entirely by the cold authority of documents and financial figures, shocking revelations that he asserted were sourced directly from an active forensic audit currently being executed by Prince Harry's own legal counsel. The sheer magnitude of this truth was something that caught even seasoned observers completely off guard. It increasingly appeared that Prince Harry's legal team was executing a sophisticated tactical maneuver utilizing Piers Morgan as an unofficial conduit to leak privileged information before any Hollywood PR spin doctors had a chance to intervene or sanitize the narrative. The broadcast itself began in a manner that was deeply unsettling. There was no opening music, no frenetic energy, just a heavy, suffocating silence that spoke volumes. Piers sat motionless, his eyes locked onto the camera lens with a look of absolute conviction, devoid of his usual theatricality. When he finally broke the tension, his words were not a question, but a somber vindication. "I warned you all from the very beginning that this was a hoax. I warned you that those tears were nothing more than a performance." He pressed on, his voice dropping, as he addressed the audience with a mix of vindication and genuine disbelief. "Even with my notorious skepticism, I never could have fathomed that she would be implicated in something of this magnitude, a sophisticated $12 million money laundering operation routed through a shadowy shell corporation in the Cayman Islands. But we are past the point of speculation. These are undeniable metrics, and they are right here before our eyes." With a deliberate motion, Piers flipped open the dossier to a specific page, prompting the studio cameras to zoom in until the text filled the screens at home. While the sensitive account numbers were heavily redacted with thick black ink to comply with legal standards, the entity listed at the top was starkly legible: Arch Illumination Limited. It was revealed to be a liquidation account held at Silicon Valley Bank, explicitly flagging an urgent wire transfer with a final destination of Dubai. These leaked files appear to serve as the final corroborating puzzle piece, validating the fragmented details that have surfaced in previous independent investigations. What we are witnessing here is not random spending, but a documented pattern of systematic withdrawals hemorrhaging from the Sussexes' joint accounts, a timeline that stretches back exactly 18 months. Piers drew the audience's attention to a critical timestamp buried in the ledger, his finger tapping the screen for emphasis. "Focus on this date," he commanded. "This isn't a coincidence. This marks the exact day the Spotify partnership was publicly terminated." The implication was devastatingly clear the very moment their primary revenue stream evaporated. She allegedly initiated a series of unauthorized transfers. This behavior cannot be dismissed as a momentary lapse or financial panic. Rather, it bears all the hallmarks of a cold, calculated diversion of assets designed to secure capital before the ship went down. What infused Piers's reaction with such visceral impact was not just shock but the chilling clarity of recognition. He knew exactly who he was looking at in that grainy LAX airport footage. He recounted a specific encounter with this woman at an exclusive media finance conference in London years prior, where she wasn't discussing public relations but was evangelizing aggressive high-stakes tax avoidance strategies tailored for the ultra-elite. "I knew the nature of her character from that very moment," he stated with grim certainty. "She was a shark in a tailored suit." Seeing this specific figure standing shoulder to shoulder with Meghan on the tarmac signaled that the situation had escalated beyond simple celebrity management. The conclusion was inescapable. The game was over. Meghan hadn't hired a business manager to handle her career. She had retained a professional cleaner to sanitize the trail. Piers then proceeded to drop perhaps the most explosive bombshell of the night, revealing a specific detail that has never before entered the public domain. He exposed a wire transfer totaling exactly $2 million drained from Prince Harry's private trust, the sacred inheritance left to him by the late Queen Mother. Crucially, these funds were not moved to a joint holding, but were funneled directly into an account over which Meghan exercised absolute unilateral control. The timing of this transaction is chilling. It was executed exactly 3 days before the chaotic incident unfolded at LAX airport. This timeline forces us to ask the question that is now echoing across the internet. Is this merely a bizarre coincidence, or are we witnessing the final steps of a meticulously planned exit strategy? We want to hear your perspective on this theory. Leave your thoughts in the comments section below and make sure to like and subscribe to the channel so you remain on the front line of this developing story as we continue to uncover the truth. The tremble in Piers' voice was unmistakable, vibrating with a level of visceral rage that seemed to shake the very desk he sat behind. As he pored over the damning documents spread out before him, his demeanor shifted from professional analysis to pure moral outrage. She didn't just drain a bank account. She took the entire inheritance that Harry's grandmother specifically bequeathed to secure his future. He seethed. Let's call this what it really is. That is not business, that is grave robbing. His words sliced through the stifling tension of the studio like a razor, leaving a heavy silence in their wake. He proceeded to dissect the financial statement we had uncovered line by line, his tone completely stripped of his usual wit or humor. "She genuinely thinks the FBI are fools, doesn't she?" he asked rhetorically, locking eyes with the camera. "She seems to believe that just because she acted out a role on a TV show, she possesses the capability to outsmart seasoned federal agents. But it is exactly that profound arrogance, that blinding delusion of invincibility, that is guaranteed to be her ultimate downfall." Piers Morgan continued his forensic deconstruction of the event, distinguishing clearly between a simple procedural error and a serious violation of federal law. Let's be clear about the legal reality here. Had she simply declared the currency upon entry, she likely would have faced nothing more than a standard administrative fine or a civil penalty. However, by willfully falsifying a federal customs declaration form, she has irrevocably escalated this situation from a minor infraction into a full-blown criminal felony. Piers then shifted his focus to the sociological fallout, analyzing the unprecedented reaction, or rather the lack thereof, from the Sussex fan community. In any normal news cycle, his social media feeds would be inundated with vitriol-coordinated attacks and accusations of lying. Yet this time, the digital landscape was eerily, surprisingly silent. "Why is there such radio silence?" he asked, leaning in. The answer is simple. You can debate a subjective opinion until you are blue in the face, but you cannot debate hard, cold paper evidence. With a gesture of supreme confidence, Piers tapped the stack of financial records on his desk, visually demonstrating that he had effectively neutralized Meghan's online army, not with rhetoric, but with unassailable facts. Piers paused, looking directly into the lens as he addressed the invisible audience of his former detractors. Where is the outraged chorus now? Where are the vocal critics who branded me a monster simply for daring to ask the uncomfortable questions? He challenged. Was it truly an act of cruelty to inquire why a duchess would be transporting suitcases filled with liquid cash onto a high-security military base in Sicily, or was I simply performing the fundamental, often gritty duty of an investigative journalist? Then the broadcast took a turn that no one saw coming, a sudden palpable shift in emotional temperature. For the first time in years, Piers Morgan dropped his guard to express a rare, genuine sympathy for Prince Harry. He reframed the narrative entirely, painting Harry not as a willing accomplice, but as a man who had been psychologically hollowed out, manipulated, and robbed blind. "Let's be honest about the reality here," Piers asserted with a somber gravity. "Harry is a man who made a catastrophic error in judgment, yes. But looking at these files, he is no longer just a participant. He is the primary victim of a sophisticated crime." He went further, constructing a powerful argument that Prince Harry requires immediate physical and psychological separation from the Duchess. In Piers's evolving thesis, the dynamic is no longer being framed as a partnership, but rather as a clear case of predator versus prey where Harry is the unwitting victim in need of extraction. But Piers didn't stop at psychological profiling. In a move that kept viewers glued to their screens, he teased the existence of a smoking gun document, a piece of evidence so volatile that strict legal constraints currently prevent its full publication. However, he made a solemn promise to unveil it in the next installment of this investigation. He described the item in chilling detail, a digital correspondence originating from Meghan's private encrypted server and directed to a high-level contact in Dubai. The timestamp is critical, dated exactly 1 week prior to that fateful flight. The subject line consisted of 2 simple yet ominous words, "Package ready." Piers posited that this email serves as definitive proof of long-term premeditation. It suggests that while she was publicly smiling for the cameras alongside Harry at the Invictus Games, projecting the image of a supportive spouse, she was simultaneously operating in the shadows, sending critical logistical coordinates to her accomplices. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment escape. It was a master plan months in the making. "She is finished," Piers reiterated with absolute conviction, punctuating his verdict by slamming the thick dossier shut on the desk with a resounding thud. This isn't just the end of her tenure as a working member of the royal family, nor is it merely the collapse of her celebrity brand. By crossing these legal lines, she has effectively signed away her own freedom. He painted a stark picture of the future, stripping away the glamour that usually surrounds the Duchess. Mark my words, the next time the world catches a glimpse of Meghan Markle, she won't be draped in haute couture or wearing a custom Dior gown on a red carpet. She will be standing before a federal judge in a court of law. And rest assured, I will be there seated front and center, documenting every single second of accountability. Piers made it clear that his intense reaction was a necessary step in validating a scandal many had dismissed. By staking his reputation on these documents, Piers Morgan has dramatically amplified the scope of this investigation, commanding the attention of the global press. The impact was instantaneous. Across the Atlantic, editors at major British tabloids were reportedly stopping the presses, scrambling to revise their front pages to feature his defining declaration in bold, unforgiving headlines, "I have seen the files." He took a moment to emphasize the sheer scale of the forensic undertaking involved, describing the recovery of deleted tweets, scrubbed statements, and digital cover-ups, not just as research, but as a digital archaeological dig. He stressed that piecing together these fragments of truth from a deliberate campaign of obfuscation is a time-consuming and laborious task that requires significant resources. Piers then pivoted directly to the audience, issuing an urgent call to action. He encouraged viewers to support the channel's mission by becoming official members, framing this financial support not merely as a donation, but as the fuel necessary to help this story bypass the mainstream media gatekeepers and spread to a wider global audience. Moving seamlessly into the second half of the broadcast, Piers introduced a segment he provocatively titled "The Bag Flipping Game." He strode confidently across the studio to a massive electronic smartboard which flickered to life to reveal a complex visual diagram of the alleged theft. He traced the path with his finger, demonstrating that this wasn't a simple linear transfer from the Archewell Foundation directly to Meghan's personal luggage. Instead, the graphic displayed a labyrinthine spiderweb of transactions, an intricate network designed to confuse auditors and hide the true origin of the funds. At the heart of all the transactions was a Delaware-registered company called Project Phoenix LLC, which Piers claimed served as the funnel for receiving the money. Every payment from Netflix, Spotify, or Penguin Random House goes into a shared account, and within 48 hours, a corresponding amount is transferred to Project Phoenix to pay for consulting services. Harry signed off on these payments. Piers pointed to the screen, drawing the audience's attention. "Look at that signature," he continued. "That's Harry's signature, but the dates don't match." This shows that these signatures were not real. They were just digital copies. Meghan didn't need Harry's approval for every transaction. She already had his electronic signature on file and automatically approved the funds. Harry was deceived, approving millions of dollars while busy playing polo or writing books. All through a single PDF file, and the truth revealed changed Harry's role from an accomplice to a victim of identity fraud. The unauthorized use of his electronic signature for each transaction constitutes the crime of signature forgery. Piers didn't stop there. He went on to highlight a crucial transaction, a $2 million withdrawal fee taken from the Queen Mother's Trust, the last remaining funds tied to Harry's family history. The receiving account, a Dubai bank called JRA Sovereign Holdings, confirmed the severity of the theft. Colleagues on set were furious, whispering to each other, "She took the Queen Mother's money." The money that was supposed to protect Harry was instead used to aid Meghan's escape. This wasn't just greed, but an act of revenge, a challenge to the organization that bestowed upon her the title she now hides behind Piers Morgan. After dealing with the legal threat, Piers moved on to the previously leaked emails. While unable to provide actual screenshots due to legal requirements, he did read verifiable excerpts. An email sent to an architect listed the assets to be liquidated and not just cash. Piers read each item aloud. First, Diana's watch. Second, the Cartier bracelet. Third, the diamond engagement ring. He paused, his expression serious. Meghan wasn't just taking cash. She also planned to sell jewelry associated with Princess Diana gifts from Harry, items symbolizing their love. Piers emphasized that the items were estimated to be worth up to $450,000, and they needed to be sold urgently. He asserted that selling Diana's jewelry on the black market in Dubai was a profound insult not only to the royal family, but also to the British people. Harry, who had always been proud of his mother, would see this as a grave betrayal, viewing her family's heirlooms as easily liquidated commodities. It would be an unimaginable psychological shock. Royal biographer Tom Bower, who was expected to appear on the show later, was overheard in the waiting room, sadly acknowledging the scale of the theft. Piers concluded with a strong plea to the Italian authorities: don't let her go. Confiscate her luggage and search her carry-on. If that Cartier watch is in there, she's smuggling stolen royal property. When the show returned after the commercial break, the atmosphere shifted from investigative outrage to justifiable vindication. Piers addressed the Hollywood elite directly. For years you have lectured us, awarded her prizes, and honored her as an icon fighting against systemic racism. So where are you all today? Piers named the powerful representatives at WME who signed contracts with Meghan, despite knowing full well that her financial books had been manipulated. He criticized her celebrity friends who lent her private jets acting as carriers of illegal cargo. You're not supporting a humanitarian, Piers continued. You're covering up the reputation of a fraud. By protecting her and silencing her critics, you're complicit. You created the shield so she could embezzle $12 million. This is the Piers Morgan effect. Reclaim the awards. Admit if you've been cheated. Otherwise, I'll assume you already know. The next segment of the program revealed a shocking piece of information after the commercial break. A senior member of the British royal family contacted Piers not for an interview, but simply to say 2 words: thank you. This person felt unable to speak the truth, unable to defend themselves, but today they sensed that justice was finally being served. The king was watching. That thank you channel for the monarchy. Piers also didn't forget to move on to political issues, particularly the interference of the Internal Revenue Service, IRS. How can a woman transfer $12 million through American banks without IRS interference? Piers questioned. If I transferred $10,000, they would audit me for a whole year. The story becomes increasingly complicated and the questions grow heavier. Will justice truly be served? Or is it all just an elaborate charade? We'll have to wait and see what further revelations come, but this story certainly won't end so easily. She has transferred millions of dollars, and now Piers Morgan is relentlessly raising thorny questions about political protection. He raises rumors that Meghan Markle is being groomed for a Senate seat and is building a network of connections with top Democratic fundraisers. Is she being protected? Is there a no-holds-barred approach to Sussexes records because Meghan is considered a valuable political asset? If so, this is not just a celebrity scandal, but potentially corruption at the highest levels of the U.S. government. Piers called for a congressional hearing demanding the release of suspicious reports from the banks. I want to see that report. I want to know which bank manager discovered it and who covered it up. There can't be 7 suitcases of cash on the runway and no one in power turned a blind eye, Piers said. He invited Dr. Orwell, a forensic psychologist, to join via satellite. Piers asked, "Is she insane or evil?" Dr. Orwell replied coldly, "She's not insane, Piers." Based on the analysis of the power structure and the transformation of the characters involved in this investigation, what are your thoughts? If you find Piers Morgan and the experts' arguments to be valid, please leave a comment. Number 2 in the comments section. If you believe this is just a misunderstanding or a staged scenario to tarnish reputation, please leave a comment. Number 5, don't forget to press like and subscribe to the channel. Join us now as we continue to unravel the hidden corners and complex systems in our upcoming videos. Your support is our motivation to seek the truth. She is a highly extreme antisocial personality disorder. The plans, the architect, the fake costumes, it's all cold, calculated, rational work. Piers relentlessly criticized she feels no guilt. She's just afraid of being caught. Right now she's sitting in a jail cell in Sicily. She doesn't regret stealing the money. She regrets that the pilot diverted the plane before. Harry looked haggard, pale, and lonely. Piers said softly, "Look at him. This is what happens when you let a vampire into your house." She drained his bank account, his joy, his family, and his reputation. Now he's just an empty shell. The man who fought in Afghanistan has been defeated by a Hallmark actress. Looking directly into the camera, Piers continued, "Harry, if you're watching, pick up the phone. Call your father not to ask for money but to apologize, because the only people who will visit you in the hospice are the family you betrayed." Piers went on to announce that the U.S. ambassador to Italy had arrived at the base in Sicily. Don't let them make a deal. Keep an eye on the State Department, Piers warned viewers. If they try to sneak her back to a private clinic in Malibu for burnout treatment, we'll riot. She should be in jail, not at a spa. At the end of the program, Piers welcomed an unexpected guest, a former U.S. federal prosecutor specializing in international organized crime and large-scale asset seizures. This wasn't a famous lawyer seeking attention. "This is the man who sent drug cartels to jail," Piers introduced. The colleagues asked the question everyone wanted answered. Considering the charges of fraud, cyber fraud, money laundering, and misappropriation of trust funds, how long will she face in prison? The prosecutor remained calm and replied, "Ladies and gentlemen, if the evidence you present is credible, then this is not a light punishment. We are facing a serious case under the Criminal Influential and Corrupt Organizations Act, RICO. Meghan Markle, through a network of shell companies and offshore banks, orchestrated a complex scheme that carries a mandatory minimum sentence. Combined with charges of cyber fraud, customs violations, and illegal transaction structures, she faces a sentence of 20 to 30 years in prison without parole." Piers Morgan questioned her ability to avoid severe punishment, especially given her status as a duchess and mother of a prince's children. But the prosecutor shook his head. Not this time. The king had stripped her of her title, and the State Department was also suffering embarrassment as the incident humiliated the U.S. government at a NATO military base. "This will be a lesson for all. No house arrest, no yoga retreats, no luxurious life in Monaco. Instead, Meghan will face years in a federal prison, perhaps FCI Dublin. From Duchess, she has become a prisoner, a harsh and inevitable transition. The illusions of exile in Dubai have vanished, and now she must face the reality of a 6x8-meter cell. Arteriovenous malformation, AVM, is an extremely dangerous condition in which the blood vessels in the face connect abnormally, forming a tangled network that can rupture at any moment. Jennifer's face was covered with bright red vascular masses, swollen like balloons on the verge of bursting. Every breath and every smile was a gamble with death for Jennifer. To save her life, doctors had to place tissue expanders beneath her facial skin, making her appearance during treatment even more frightening. You wouldn't believe the dramatic transformation she underwent after. As the cameras faded, the message became crystal clear. Stories can be staged, images can be curated, and sympathy can be manufactured, but the numbers do not lie. When the truth finally hits, no title, no fame, and no carefully crafted legend can protect her anymore. Please note, this content is for reference only based on unverified theories and public speculation. We are discussing this through an objective analytical lens. Now I want to hear from you. Press 1 if you believe this theory has merit. Press 0 if you think this is nothing more than baseless rumor. Don't forget to like and subscribe so we can keep uncovering the latest